The black hole is the most fearsome and awesome, as in awe-inspiring, object in the universe, and so it's appropriate we associate the black hole with the point 6 on the Enneagram, that point in all of us that concerns fear, terror, and awe. A black hole can form following the collapse of a massive star in a supernova explosion, or in other cases, such as when two neutron stars collide. Black holes are incredibly massive, but they often cover relatively a small area. A black hole consists of 3 layers. The event horizon has 2 layers, an outer layer and an inner layer, and then there's the singularity, that single point in the middle of the black hole. Now, the event horizon is the boundary of the black hole. It's its mouth. It's that threshold when once crossed, an uncertain future awaits. It's thought that nothing can escape the gravitational pull of a black hole after the object has passed the event horizon. Not even light can escape. This is debatable, however, and we'll get to those caveats. In any event, it's this crossing the threshold, crossing over Niagara Falls with nothing left to do other than to fall in, that creates the fearsomeness around the black hole. This is what makes them so terrifying. The black hole pulls things around it, but most things do not fall into a black hole. Rather, they orbit the black hole. Stars orbit black holes, just like planets orbit our sun. As the black hole spins, it creates accretion disks around it, consisting of gas and dust, with a lot of high-energy radiation flying around. The black hole essentially feeds on this accretion disk. Also, as it spins, the black hole creates distortions in space-time around it. These distortions create an infinite regression, as distortions get further distorted around the black hole. Now, space is also distorted in that objects that come near the event horizon begin to stretch out on one side in a kind of spaghetti-like feature. This is actually called spaghettification. Time is also distorted by the black hole. As objects approach its event horizon, time slows down for those objects in relation to another object or another vantage point farther away. Now, the singularity, that single point in the middle of the black hole, is where its mass is most contracted, and it's thought that the space-time curvature may become infinite in the singularity. Now, it's thought due to quantum effects that the event horizon may actually act as a wall of fire, instantly incinerating anything that crosses its threshold, since for the most part, all that crosses the event horizon threshold is surrendered to the gravity of the black hole. It's this quality of surrender that I lift up to connect the black hole with the point 6. The black hole and the point 6, or the type 6, relate to emptying and stabilizing reality. The black hole is the perfect symbol for emptying, for emptiness, despite the fact that the black hole itself is not actually empty. It actually constitutes a dense bundle of matter. Also, the black hole does not act like a cosmic vacuum cleaner, contrary to popular notions. Instead, things fall into a black hole by force of gravity. So the black hole is more receptive by nature. And this speaks to how the point 6 is the point of receptivity. It's the denying force in the law of 3. One could say that as things fall into the black hole is in a sense emptying the universe of this matter and this light. Likewise, the point 6 on the Enneagram represents emptying ourselves of experience, and the type 6 personality pattern is to empty or to challenge, to undermine whatever has arisen, whatever has come into being. And like the receptivity of the black hole, the type 6 personality structure is so receptive, taking in tons of information, usually in a wide-eyed alertness, looking for patterns, looking for threats, looking for potential dangers. Indeed, many people have compared the black hole to a giant eyeball. It's like a big pupil, perhaps not so much seeing out, but absolutely taking in light, taking in information. It's a kind of gravitational lens, just like the cornea is the transparent window of our human eye. It allows light to come in, and its mission is to gather and focus visual images. In other words, information. The cornea metaphor for both the black hole and for the alertness of the type 6 is very rich, and it's related to the qualities of trauma and awe and wonder, two closely related phenomena. Trauma can occur when we close off or shut down in the face of an overwhelming or shocking experience. The experience is too intense, too fast, too powerful, perhaps too troubling for us to make sense of the experience, to process it in real time. And thus, the traumatic memory gets stored in the body, which is present, but the memory is free-floating, it's dissociated. It's kind of knocking on the door of our consciousness in the form of a repetitive pattern that keeps emerging. it hasn't yet found a home. Meanwhile, if in that same shocking or overwhelming experience, we're somehow able to meet it with openness, with surrender, we're able to let go completely, that same overwhelm might instead be experienced as a moment of tremendous awe and wonder. Now, in a sense, the point 6 in all of us represents that existential choice in every moment, since every moment is an infinity that we can't possibly process and keep up with, let alone make sense of. Interestingly, the word cornea, the transparent layer forming the front of the eye, comes from the Latin word cornu, meaning horn, and it's related to the idea that the cornea is a kind of horny tissue around the eye. The association of horn with cornea also calls to mind that phrase, being on the horns of a dilemma, being between two impossible choices, two disagreeable choices, having to decide between these two things. Just as whatever approaches the event horizon is getting stretched and distorted, it's our resistance, our closing off to whatever is arising that causes suffering. And yet, surrender can be terrifying. The maddeningly impossible choice between suffering and surrender segues into the first cognitive fixation, doubting. Questioning the truth or fact of something, disbelieving a person or their word, to mistrust, suspect, query, and challenge, to hesitate, waver, and vacillate. The type 6 has an obsession for truth and security and safety, for certainty, and as a result of this obsession, the type 6 engages in this pattern of doubting, of challenging, of testing, of emptying things out, of undermining them, destroying them, and taking them apart, all to find the truth of the matter. And it can manifest in this type 6's propensity towards contrarian thinking, always taking the opposite position, the devil's advocate, always doing the one hand on the other hand, and saying things like, yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. Similarly, the black hole's event horizon splits stars apart when they come too close. It cuts them to pieces. The black hole is a kind of cosmic wood chipper. This is the direct opposite of the main sequence star associated with the point 3. In the core of the main sequence star is an element factory, and so creation is associated with the point 3, and destruction is associated with the point 6. But it's also thought that the destructive power of the black hole's event horizon actually supports creation in the universe, because as matter gets broken down as it approaches the event horizon, all these heavy elements get spread around the universe and can be used in further creation. Similarly, the destructive power of the point 6 is a natural part of the cycle of creation and destruction. It's natural for us to be broken down into our composite elements as a part of our growth. And so this breaking down should not be seen as a failure, as a disappointment, but as a natural part of the cycle of life. Destruction also relates to the cognitive habit of doubting. 6s in their quest for finding ground, for finding truth and certainty, tend to go about the process of destroying things, and everything can get swept up in the 6's net of doubt, including their own guidance, their own inner wisdom, their own intuition. And when that gets doubted and challenged, when that gets destroyed or torn down, the 6 is left confused. They don't know what direction to go in, what's reliable, what's certain, and what's true. And so 6s have a habit of abdicating their own authority, abdicating their power. They project it out onto some exterior source, such as another person, a group, or a belief system, even like the Enneagram, for example. And 6s can have this habit of consulting other people. They have so much doubt as to what direction to take, they have a tendency to go around asking everybody what they should do. And destructiveness relates to doubting in the forms of mistrust, suspicion, when the 6 projects their own inner insecurity out onto another person, saying that they're the unreliable one. The 6s have a tendency to scapegoat others for being the ones who are untrustworthy, undependable. And this scapegoating can also result in a kind of rageful even, or explosive set of accusations against the other person, this kind of fit of reactivity. This projecting and scapegoating relates to the second cognitive fixation of securing, to make free from danger or harm, to make safe, and I'm including predicting through troubleshooting, to make certain of, to ensure. This habit of making things free from danger or harm relates to the core movement of the 6, which is an attempt to secure reality. It's an attempt to find some ground in this state of groundlessness, something that we can rely upon. What's the truth at the heart of the matter? And what's related to that is this notion of causality. Sixes don't want to just know how things work and fit together like the type 5. They want to know how things work so that they can make better predictions. They can secure themselves in an uncertain world. Now, causality cannot actually be observed directly. We can only know things by their effects. Just as the black hole cannot be observed directly, it can only be known by its effects. In a sense, causality is unknowable. It ever recedes from a mind that's fixed on dual consciousness, identified with dual consciousness, a subject and an object. Why? Because in that subject-object relationship, there's a piece that's not seen, a piece that's not known. It's the witnesser that's hidden from view. And so causality eludes the mind. That predictability eludes the mind. There's an existential insecurity at the heart of the point 6, that type 6 in all of us. Now, the type 6 fixation is then to project that uncertainty onto the future. And all that troubleshooting, all of that brainstorming with their imagination of worst case scenarios is a way of trying to secure their place in the future. But in fact, it's all of that brainstorming that's scaring the 6. The 6, in an attempt to stave off fear, is actually generating fear, is actually scaring themselves into a state of anxiety. This relates to the other activities I'm including in the fixation of securing, which are to make firm or fast, as in to secure through attaching, and I'll include here loyalty. Also included is financial securing, as in to assure of payment, and here I'll include the quality of commitment. When integrated, type 6s have a gift for paradox. They can see and hold both sides together simultaneously. However, when not so integrated, type 6s tend to fall very hard onto one side or the other. 6s tend to split reality into good or bad, into us versus them. And when 6s do that, they can attach with ferocity, with loyalty to that one side, and they become loyal almost to a fault. And when that happens, the 6s can devolve into a kind of fundamentalism. And it's that type 6 in all of us, that's the fundamentalist. That's the person who's clinging out of insecurity onto a system, a belief, an exterior source of authority. Notwithstanding all of this talk of destructiveness, it's possible that both the type 6 and the black hole exert a stabilizing influence on their surroundings. In fact, there's a black hole thought to be at the center of every galaxy, including the Milky Way. This is the so-called Sagittarius A star. And while it's unknown why a black hole happens to be at the center of a galaxy, it's within the realm of possibility that black holes are exerting a kind of stabilizing influence, allowing the galaxy to remain held together in its rotation. In any event, the potentially stabilizing force of the black hole for the rest of the galaxy relates to the type 6's love of family and of community. 6s love to create and preserve community and tradition. Now, in a lower functioning way, this relates to how the type 6 in all of us, that fearful tendency in all of us, seeks to bond with groups. There's safety in numbers. I want to be part of a tribe, part of something to ensure my safety and security. But it also relates to how the type 6 can be the backbone of organizations, of communities, and of families. Now, despite the common notion that nothing, including light, can escape a black hole, Stephen Hawking discovered otherwise. He found that particles can leak out of the black hole based on Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Because of quantum mechanics, particles can pop into existence even on the far side of a seemingly unbreakable barrier, like the event horizon. But when particles do this, they pop in a kind of positive and negative form, a particle and an antiparticle. And when that happens, they tend to immediately collide and pop back out. However, sometimes the particle and the antiparticle pop on either side of the event horizon. And in that case, particles that pop on the far side of the event horizon can be reintegrated into the universe. It's energy, information that the black hole is essentially leaking. This calls to mind, of course, the splitting tendency of the type 6 into that positive and its negative. In any event, this creates a kind of apparent horizon around the black hole. Instead of the formidable event horizon, the black hole is more like it's flickering, it's fuzzy around its edges. The dark flicker of the apparent horizon and the fact that light is bending all around the black hole renders it visually the direct opposite of the self-illuminating red giant with its brilliant corona or crown of light shining forth. All this calls to mind how the point 6 in many ways inverts the point 3 on the Enneagram. This leaking of radiation over time, the so-called Hawking radiation, means the black hole may be slowly shrinking and may disappear altogether eventually, although this may take up to 100 billion times the age of our current universe. And so this all connects to the passion of the type 6, which is fear. Fear is an unpleasant agitation or excitation connected with the dread of what might happen and imagined pain or threat in the future. And as I talked about, fear can also be experienced in the face of overpowering reverence, such as the fear and trembling associated with awe and wonder. In particular, I want to highlight the relationship between fear and imagination. Stephen Hawking said that black holes are stranger than science fiction, even though they're a matter of scientific fact. But in fact, black holes have been the subject of immense fascination in the genre of science fiction. To take one example, consider the new renderings and discoveries about black holes that were made when physicist Kip Thorne worked with the crew of the film Interstellar. Also, while science fiction can oftentimes scare us about things that might happen in the future, science fiction has been known to predict the future, predict future discoveries. The power of imagination is core to the type 6 structure, both in terms of its ability to imagine all those worst-case scenarios in an attempt to prepare, predict, secure an uncertain future. It also relates to how a lower-functioning type 6 can imagine vast networks of hostility, conspiracy theories all mounted against the 6, who can devolve into a kind of a state of paranoid delusion in their alienation. But in a more integrated way, the type 6 can use the imagination to produce wonderful, beautiful works of creativity which the 6 can offer to the world. And sometimes the 6, when truly integrated, can receive an impression, a kind of intuition, a knowing about what's going to happen in the future. Not in any way that the 6 has calculated or speculated or put together, but almost in a sense of a kind of revelation or a sense of prophecy of the future. And so it's the journey of the type 6 in all of us, to courageously face our fears, particularly those existential fears, those deepest fears. And when those situations arise, to remain loyal, to remain committed, to stand our ground, to see through those fears, and to open in surrender. And when that happens, those fears are transmuted or uncovered to be our existential strength, our existential confidence that we have the resources to face and meet whatever arises. In that case, all of the gifts that we have can truly be brought forward together in a way of creating community, in a way of serving the world family, in a way that uplifts all of us.